Let's do
Hello
it.
there. How you doing?
I am doing well, and yourself?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for willing to do this, Paul.
Glad to be here.
You know, I want to be honest with you, Pete Paul, but I've been getting to know more about you ever since Xemnas from Kingdom Hearts. And to tell you the truth, back when I first watched Naruto back then, I never knew what anime was. But then
Oh,
I discovered this show that you voice acted in a long time ago called One Punch Man.
hmm,
That show was the very reason why I've discovered anime and who the voice actors are. That's why I
wow.
begin to know more about voice actors, including you, Paul.
Hmm. Well, I appreciate that, and it's a fun show, and I certainly had a couple of fun episodes.
Yes, indeed. Just why I actually made a video about One Punch Man in my YouTube channel to
Hmm.
represent for the third season that is coming this year. And I mean, you know what the best part is?
What would that
That's
be?
that some of your characters are going to make their return to the third season due to the manga.
Oh,
So, yeah, that's something I've been wanting to tell you. Just like
well,
I
what
told
I'm.
to Wendy Lee.
Uh-huh.
So,
It,
yeah.
it is something we have to look forward to. Is when they put something in the manga, the win. Cross our fingers, will it make it into the anime? Because just like a good novel, you can't put everything from a manga into the episodes any more than you can put something from a everything from a novel into a good movie. You just can't. There's no way.
Yeah, that's what everybody is going through, you know. That's what I've seen all of my life. But anyway, I have many questions I've been wanting to ask you.
Oh, okay.
Tell me, how is it like being a voice actor in many animated shows?
The adventure. All I can say is it continues. Um, as anime changes, as I find myself going back and doing old style anime cartoons. Um, yeah, and how things have changed over the years because in the old days, of course, were hand drawn cartoons with all of their flaws and charms. Um, and I just about a year and a half ago did an episode of way back from the 60s, um, Lupin the Third. And I got to see, again, the very old stuff um, and the things that I grew up with. And when you see that and contrast it with CGI and all of the very sharp as a razor stuff that's in there, uh, it gives you a pretty good idea of how much it's changed in the past 50 years or so.
Interesting. Which leads me to the most important question. How did you get into voice acting?
Well, many years ago, as a stage actor in San Diego, um, doing what they call legit stage work at the Old Globe Theater and doing Shakespeare, also singing in the opera company, I had a very, very heavy duty stage background. And one thing you should do as a stage actor or anything as an actor, you should learn as many skills as you can. I was hungry to become a dialectician, to be good with accents, making me more employable. A friend of mine heard me doing some work with an accent and liked my voice, and he was a friend of my ex-wife, and he asked me to come in and audition for him. This was my very first series in 1985, and it's called Robotech, and still has quite the following. But that's how I actually began, and from there it's been a matter of networking, maintaining good relations, staying available, staying as active as possible, and staying as sharp as possible with my voice, with my speech, um, again with all the things I've studied, like uh, Shakespeare, poetry in general, and really staying sharp as I can as a speaker and as a dialectician and accent specialist.
Interesting. So that's how you get into voice acting
Well,
because of
that's how
all
I did.
that.
That's how I got into it. It's not everyone, of course. Um, that happened because of the studies I was doing, and that's something to keep in mind. What I do, you need to keep on studying, 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 and working, um, and never stop. That's why, even to this day, I'm researching accents. I was listening to the president of Kenya today, talking to President Biden, and I was listening to the Kenyan's accent and listening to the shifts from our pronunciation in American English from his in English, the way they speak it in Kenya. So there's always something to be listening to and watching for. So in that sense, you never stop and you never rest.
Interesting. Well, that seems very nice, actually. But you know, I want I wanted to say this, but to be honest with you, I was gonna ask you the question about who your first character is way before you got to others, but you just mentioned your first ever one is Robotech, so I'm glad you answered that for me.
That was my very first character. He was a lead in the second chapter of Robotech, and that was called the Southern Cross. And my character was Zor Prime.
Interesting. Well, that's very nice, you know. I just need to make sure to just in case if I ever make a voice showcase for you, it will be much more interesting in a chronological order. Truth is, there is someone, a fan of mine on YouTube, who's really been wanting me to make a video about your voice showcase. But honestly, there is one missing piece of detail to make sure it's complete. And it's one of your voices you did in a long time ago called Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Destiny, which you were brought in by Stephanie Shea and Carrie Carnan. I've been trying to search for the voice of yours for months because of John Avener's and Bryce Peppenbrook's voices in Behind the Voice Actors website. And it's been
Mhm.
driving me crazy. I wanted all the actor support to make sure the dubbing gets released so that my showcase can be complete for you and for everybody else that I've been doing for years.
Mhm. Well, I appreciate that.
Well, it's what I do best,
Um,
you know. But oh, oh right, I forgot. I forgot to ask you the questions, but in the show Monster, what was your favorite part about playing Dr. Julius Redwine?
that would be Julius Reichwein.
Which
Reich,
shrine? I
Reichwein. Yeah.
apologize.
No, not to worry because part of what I do is handle other languages, and I try to be as careful as I can about the pronunciations. I also do speak some German, and I'm familiar with the German pronunciations. So yeah, Dr. Reichwein or Reichwein would be my character. My favorite part was I got to play this kind of, I don't want to say necessarily cranky, but he was an older guy that had been around quite a bit. And we see in the course of the story that he's a combat veteran. And at one time, these two guys take me out to an alley and they start beating on me. Um, and they figure they're done with me. Well, my character gets up and I say, "Hang on, boys, I'm not done with you." And then I headbutt a couple of them and beat them up and destroy them. So I like the fact that this character, although older, was still a tough cookie and still stood up to people. Um, that was part of what made him such an attractive character to play. That and also he was fairly smooth, you know.
I see. So that's your favorite thing about playing him. Today, this Paul, I've seen the show Monster, you know, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
very physical drama show which involves like a lot of physicality in a lot of people, you know. But
Yeah.
today, the truth, I'm glad Patrick Seitz was able to bring you into that show. But you know what the funny thing is? The funny thing is, your character Julius resembles the character that you played in a months ago in the show called Pluto, the principal. He looks exactly like Julius, you know? And
Exactly
the
right.
funny thing is, Patrick literally got you into the show, which I made a video on my YouTube channel, which I include you in there as the voice of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Patrick and I got a kick out of that because we looked at the character and mustache and everything, glasses and everything. You just never know what's going to happen like that. Most of the characters I play will be monsters and things like that. So actually voicing a human being is unusual for me. Um, unless it's a show that has all humans, there have been productions where, yes, it took place in outer space, but we didn't have any aliens. It was a drama, and it took place and had a war, an intergalactic war, and took place aboard the ship, and all these things were going on. So I didn't get a chance to do some kind of, demonic creature. Uh, but quite often that is what happens. I'm called in because I do the character voices and the monster voices, and I can change myself around and sound like I'm from a different country or speak a different language. Uh, so sometimes you will hear a character and not know it was me, and find out later, simply because it's so utterly different. A good example of that would be in Cowboy Bebop. Um, when I played the character of Punch, people that were in the show, Wendy Lee, for instance, were in the show and didn't realize I did that character until 5 years later. When they heard me do the voice, and when Wendy heard that, her eyes got this big, and she said, "That was you?" She had no idea, you know. So sometimes you change your voice so much that you don't sound like you anymore.
It's super funny how you say it, because that's what everybody goes through. So, yeah, that's all to it. But anyway, speaking of intergalactic, like you said, but how does it feel about playing Captain Connor in Eden's Zero?
That's a fun character because and you don't really discover this until the end of the season. Um, he is a more pivotal and more intelligent and important character. It's just he's so foolish. He's such a he's a kind of an idiot. Tries to get tight with the women in the hot tub and stuff like that, and they kick him around. And yet, you realize when you're nearing the end of the first season, he manages to get everybody to their destination by way of a shortcut that they didn't know about. And suddenly they're thinking, oh, this Connor guy, I guess he's not such an idiot. And then as I'm walking off my last scene, that's when I pull my sleeve up a little bit and you actually see the emblem for Eden Zero. And whoa, now it has another level. It has a little bit more depth. So this character that you might have just laughed at and maybe you thought was funny, he's got a little bit more to him, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. And though I beginning to know a lot Eden Zero, the fun fact is I got to meet some of the actors of the show.
Oh,
And
good.
like Allegra Clark and Lizzie Freeman. But you know what
Mm-hmm.
the truth is?
What?
The truth about it is, I'm actually making a video for them and you of the characters and voice actors of the first season as an effort to gain you, Brooke Chalmers, and everyone's support to get the second season to be English dubbed. Since your
Yes.
character is literally in it, everyone's been demanding for months for
Mm-hmm.
the second season to be English dubbed, and it's been driving me crazy. And that's where it had me thinking, if I make that video for everybody on that show and show it to them through Twitter and Instagram, I can get all their support to make the English dubbing of the second season happen so that I won't have to see any spamming comments ever again.
Yeah, we have a problem when a series ends its season, its first season, or whenever, and there's more to come. It's not resolved. We know there are more episodes, and they haven't been dubbed yet. And then time goes on and on and on and on, and we're impatient. We want to get it. I want to redo that character. I want to do more. I like the way the first season ended because it was leading you someplace. And so everyone's saying, great, great, bring back Eden Zero. Come on, where are you? Where are you? And it's been probably a year now, I suppose, and not a word, not a syllable.
And that's what my YouTube channel is for, to get
Good,
all of your support to make it happen. And
good,
fortunately, I have succeeded on getting everyone's support.
good.
And And yeah, that's all to it. But anyway, how was it like playing Leomon in Digimon?
Well, like many actors, I'm drawn to the dark, villainous characters, but there was something heroic and just truly energetic and powerful about Leomon. I loved the fact that I would jump in when the kids were in trouble, and I would say, "You will not harm these children." And I would bring my sword down and, cut a fissure in the earth to stop anything from happening to them. That felt great. It was wonderful. That was something that, I've heard from fans when I've gone to conventions and I'm at my table and I'm signing autographs and talking to people about things. And one of my fans mentioned that they said they wished they had had someone like that in school when somebody bullied them. And that made me feel really good because at least for the that part of watching the show and that feeling that they wanted, that was satisfied. Leomon stepped in when the time came. I liked playing him very much as the hero, um, even though again you tend to want to play Xemnas, you tend to want to play Kurama, you tend to want to play uh, like
Yammy.
yeah. Yami Realgo is another one of those. He's a hollow. He's not. You don't want to think of him as any sort of a moral being who's good or bad.
Yeah.
Um, he's just programmed to be rotten. Um, that's just the way they are. That's the way the hollow is. So we have a character like that, and there's nothing ambiguous. There's nothing about him that is confusing. Uh, he's about murder and mayhem. End of story. And so it makes it, in a way, a simple character, but it's all there's a certain joy of being able to just let go. I don't have to think about him. Is he regretting things? Is he wondering maybe he should change his mind? Um, in Kingdom Hearts, Xemnas finished in a very ambiguous and heartbreaking way. Um, someone that you would have thought was a bad guy the whole time, suddenly, the way he finishes, it just tears at your heart. You realize what this character has been going through, what's been going on in his mind. Yami, on the other hand, it's just who can I kill? What can I smash? How big am I going to get? And how murderous can I be? You know?
You know, to be honest with you, I was gonna ask you the question about Yami, but you just answer it for me. And I'm honestly glad you did that, you know? But I've actually watched Bleach, by the way, and you did a magnificent performance as him. Well, when it comes to you speaking to Tony Oliver, of course, and of course, owning Kalino Shaughnessy and Wendy Lee that way. You were getting
Yeah,
all get lost, you two, and don't ever come back.
yeah.
And that makes me laugh right there. And that's why I honestly respect that character because he's like, he may be big, but he's more like a Megatron.
Yeah,
So,
if
yeah.
remember, um, one reason they made him add a number to him, he is supposed to be the Cerro meaning zero and the zero attack. He's a Cerro, but he added a number on there to uh, it, the way it was explained in the series and by Yami himself very angrily. He didn't like the idea of being made something different. He's a Cerro and that's that. He has that attack. I also speak Spanish, so I will give you the accents and things like that. So,
Of
um,
course.
um, but that character again, as broad as he did have certain levels, and you learned more about the story that you learned more about him um, as the story went on and how he related to it, and how other things happened around him. I was informed because I didn't know this. I was informed that he did die off screen. Um, that's why I never had a death scene, and I was never called in to do a death scene. And then I was told that the series was over, and I said, "Well, what happened to me?" Um, just recently, somebody said, "Well, this is what happened." Well, they explained a combat between two characters, and I got caught in the middle and all that other stuff. And I thought, well, that's good to know, but still, it's more satisfying to go in and do your final combat and go out in a blaze of glory and all that sort of thing.
I see. Well, that's nice to hear from you. So that's something I'm beginning to understand from that experience. But anyway, What's so awesome about being part of Gurren Lagann as Jorgun Bosaka and Tholump?
Well, these characters really give you a lot of range, a lot of places to go. Um, when something good happens or something bad happens, usually, and this has to do with writing, the animation, but the writing too. Um, the literal translations from Japanese don't give us a lot to work with because they're exactly that. They are translations from the Japanese. Now, we are extremely literal in English. The Japanese are very conceptual and symbolic. So they will say something like one series I did where I was a fighter's manager, and I mentioned that our fighter was having a bad time because the other attacker was using, um, the other boxer was using the hawk attack. Now, I know boxing. I've been a boxing fan most of my life. Um, there's no such thing as a hawk attack in English. So what we had to do, or we were supposed to do, was change that into the English equivalent of maybe stick and move, bob and weave. Um, uh, keep moving around. Change the dynamics and the placement within the ring. You can see those things in your mind, and then you can say, yeah, use an uppercut. This didn't happen. The writers did not change that stuff. So we were kind of stuck with the Japanese equivalent that didn't explain a lot about the attacks. Well, when we were doing uh, uh, Gurren Lagann, which is what I found out is the way they're supposed to say it, Gurren Lagann, um, luckily the writing reflected exactly what our characters are about and exactly what they were talking about. The writers have to really translate what the Japanese mean into what we would say in English, what the Japanese mean and what we would say. So when they would talk to me and I would say, "Yeah, we're going to go ahead and beat that guy up," you know, uh, that was the idea. That's what it actually meant. It wasn't an eagle attack or something like that, or the turtle defense or something like that. It would actually mean we're going to go in there and punch a guy out, right? So when you have good writing like that, it's a joy to play the characters. It's a joy to bring them to life, and uh, it supports the animation. It supports the look in their eyes, and in this case, the look in their goggles or whatever they were. As odd as it was, the other character, honestly, I can't remember.
The which one? The one with the letter T or the Jorgen one?
Jorgen, I remember, yeah.
Oh, Thumb. Yeah, though the general, one of the generals working for Jameson Price. For Jameson
Um,
Price's Lord Genome.
if I saw him, I would probably be able to remember. But we play so
It's
many characters. You have to remember in Digimon, I voiced 23 different characters. I used 23 different voices. You can't expect me to remember all of those. It just doesn't work that way.
oh, don't worry, Paul. That won't
Uh,
be a problem for that. So that when my voice showcase video is complete, when it comes to Mobile Suit Gundam Seed in there, then
mm,
I'll show it to you on Twitter, and trust me, you will love everything that will come to you. Just like I
I think.
promised to Doug Stone, which he
Mm,
honestly accepted that, by the way.
okay.
So yeah, that's something I promised to him and now to you. But anyway, what's the most awesome thing when playing Kurama in Naruto?
That would be in Japanese, Kurama.
Kurama,
Kurama. Yeah.
Kurama. Yeah.
So it's on the first syllable in a word in Japanese with three syllables. The first one always has the stress. So people always say Kurama and Naruto, but it's Kurama and Naruto.
Kurama. Oh,
That's right.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Kurama. So
Well,
Kurama. Yeah, the most awesome thing is the effect I have on people. Um, the sound, and also the character, because like many of the characters at the beginning of an anime, you're given an impression of him. Just like any good story, whether it's a live action, a novel you're reading, very often you will hear a description of a character and then get an introduction of the character, and it gives you an impression of what the character is like that isn't necessarily true. Um, Kurama at the very beginning seems like a bad guy, and you have to remember, I'm locked inside Naruto, and each time Naruto confronts me, um, and I love it, the little anime bead of sweat, he would always he would look up at me, and I would be trying to tempt him to have make him let me go. Part of why Naruto developed into the kind of character, the good character, the heroic character that he is that a young boy he was tempted by me and he resisted. He grew strong from that. Um, at the same time, every time he would run off and refuse to cooperate with me, I would just watch him and I would go, because I knew one day I would get him. And sure enough, we ended up working together. As the story goes on, if you're watching through all of the episodes and watching all the way into Shippuden and into Boruto, you see the way our characters develop together and evolve together, and we become partners. At some point, we even become like an old married couple because we start yelling at each other and we're angry. And my favorite episode, well, I should say my favorite line from an episode was when Naruto and I were fighting and arguing and arguing and arguing, and he wouldn't shut up. I couldn't get him to shut up. I don't know what was wrong, but he just would not stop it. And finally, I turned to him and I said, "Knock it off, you little bastard!" And that was the line that I loved more than anything. And we laughed. We have to take a break. We took a break in the middle of the session because it was so funny. Just turning to him and going, "Knock it off, you little bastard!" That was just so much fun. That was so good. But that tells you again the way the characters developed and the way the arc of the story over the years, where they become so close. And that's why it's really worth watching. The writing remained very, very good throughout the series for me. Okay. And so the characters, as they went along in the manga and went into the anime, and were then dubbed by us into English, really did lend themselves to that growth and that fusing together as almost one character, uh, cooperating and fighting together and doing combat together. But there was still that edge, that one side of it where I'm still Kurama, the nine-tailed demon fox. And in some ways, he's still a little brat. He just doesn't stop being a little brat. And that's why even as an adult, we would sit there and get argue and argue. And in one episode of Boruto, that was a nice example. Um, I think that was the first time I showed up in Boruto, and it was like episode 150 or something like that. Uh, Naruto comes to me, and he's really troubled. He needs help. He doesn't know how to relate to Boruto. He's trying to raise his son, and my character is just hanging around, and I just said, "Don't come to me for parenting advice." That was the end of it. I think that was the last line I had. I said, "Well, you're on your own, kid."
I see.
Again, part of the development of the characters, the way that they've really evolved together.
I see. Well, that's nice to hear from you. Honestly, Naruto has been my childhood, long before I discovered anime and you. And the story is actually very nice, actually, from what I've seen with my own eyes. And you playing Kurama was actually the very best choice of all time. And I'm honestly glad Mary Elizabeth McGlenn was able to bring you in. I'm really glad.
Yes, as Kurama, I've been able to really learn a lot about the series and the way that the episodic writing works. Uh,
Yeah.
no, as I mentioned before, there are things you see in the uh, manga that we can't put into the show because the Japanese don't animate it. They can't just get all of it in there any more than we could. So what they have selected in terms of advancing the story has always been very effective. And again, the scripts have been terrific. It's easy to do the work we do from an acting standpoint if the writing is good. Um, that is something that is supported by good writing, and good writing makes it easier to be an actor. It's still challenging on the technical standpoint. It's still there are still times when the animation doesn't support the writing and vice versa, because that's the way it is. If the Japanese end on a word with the vowel sound looking like this, "o," and the translation works out to "mm," well, we're going to finish on an and the character is going to have an "o," and so it will look wrong. So we have to work as actors, and often, I should say, with the writers, and sometimes with us as actors, to try to come up with a better translation, try to come up with a word that at least fits a little bit better. So that collaboration between actors and writers is sometimes necessary, simply because, again, the translation from Japanese comes to a certain point and has a look, and the words just don't fit that look. So there are times when it's more challenging, and sometimes you can't solve that problem. It's just the way. It's just the way it is.
I see. That's something I'm beginning to understand. But you know what? Thank you for that lesson, Paul. I really appreciate the advice right there. Really
You're welcome.
enlightened me to learn more about the voice acting, since I too am a voice actor myself, which
Mm-hmm.
I currently just recorded myself doing the lines before I got here. So
Okay.
yeah, that's something I wanted to tell you. But
Yes, rehearse, 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 rehearse. You bet.
yeah. But anyway, what was your favorite part about playing, well, being the voice of Xemnas in Kingdom Hearts?
Uh, Xemnas brings a lot to the table, and I have to say, if I'm just going to use one word, and probably not a real word, but the best part is the awesomeness. Um, when you think about the nobodies and you think about Organization 13 and you think about us in the black cloaks and all this other stuff, um, a lot of it has to do with the mysterious elements, the parts that you can't quite grasp, that you have to watch and listen for within the series. When we start explaining what we want in terms of arts, uh, darkness, and how we would like the character to join us, whoever it is we're talking to, or you know, you start seeing the characters come out and what's important to them. And when I have, some great line like, "Ansem the wise, you look pathetic." What's going on there? Because that's Ansem the wise. He's not some little guy. He's not somebody unimportant. That's important. And yet, what's going on between the two of us? Why is Zemnis talking that way to him? Um, the internal conflicts within Organization 13 and how we fought each other, how we joined, how sometimes we would agree or disagree. One of my favorite characters, just because he's kind of snide in a fun way, is Zigbar. Um, when you think about the character and the patch in the eye and uh, this the smirk on his face, uh, these are all different elements of interesting characters, multi-layered characters, uh, and it makes it just plain fun to play. But if, I would have to say the awesomeness simply because it's a character that gets deeper, in some ways more mysterious as the series goes on.
I see. Well, that's very nice to hear from you, Paul. To be honest with you, that game, Kingdom Hearts, has been my childhood all of my life, and
Wow.
that's
Okay.
why I ended up meeting up with Richard Epcar himself, Ansem. And you know what the best part is? Guess
Mm-hmm.
who I got to meet on Friday?
Oh, when?
Your second in command, Kirk Thornton,
Oh,
Syax.
wow.
Yep.
Yes. Kirk, Kirk and I talked about having worked on the series, and we were at the very beginning. I auditioned for my role, and he said he just got called in. He didn't actually audition, and so that was kind of nice to hear that. He got in by invitation, and we're absolutely worthy of that, rightly so. Kirk's terrific. Is it terrific as an actor, and he's a good guy. You know.
Indeed, he is when it comes to doing a lot of good characters. Even you, Paul, and and that's something I'm beginning to notice when it comes to hearing performances, however.
Oh, all right.
So
Thank you.
yeah. But anyway, what's the biggest thing when playing Wang Fu in Miraculous Ladybug? Last question, by the way.
Oh, all right. Okay. For me, it's the sweetness. Um, I would like to use the word innocence because the character is a very, very uh, good person, a very virtuous and responsible person because he is a guardian. He has to take care of the miraculous. Um, but it's not to make it sound like he's innocent and afraid or whatever. He knows about the responsibility. He understands that, and he's very courageous. Wang Fu, Master Fu, as we say, Master Fu is very courageous, um, and steps up several times within the episodes to do combat. Um, my favorite part, though, is the fact that he seems to be so knowing. Um, a character like that allows you to vocally move yourself around a lot. Um, Sometimes just in a sweet way. When I'm thinking about um, uh, Marinette and Adrian, and I know who they are. Others don't. I know who they are, and watching what they do and how they act and how they interact, which is very interesting. Um, they I get a chance to look at them and study and uh, see what they need and give them missions that are important, missions that reflect what is needed by us, to keep Paris intact and to stop the hawk moth and that sort of thing. So it's a multi-layered character that really does have a lot of dimensions. He is wise. He is courageous and energetic, especially in the movie where I run around a lot. But it's my favorite part about it really is the multi-dimensional part of the character, um, because he is sweet and he is deep, um, and yet always there is a slight sense of immediacy, almost desperation, because in especially one of the episodes, the Hawkmoth does find me, and he does know. Suddenly he can find the box. Suddenly he knows who has the miraculous. Um, so it's a character that allows me a lot of range. And unfortunately, because they wiped my memory and I went away, I did reappear several times in the episode, but not as a Master Fu. I was just a tourist.
I see. Well, that's nice to hear from you, Paul. To be honest, I've actually watched Miraculous Ladybug, and it's very awesome that Ezra Weiss bringing you into the show was the best choice ever. And that's what I love about the show. It's by knowing about the stories and the character developments, you know? And
Yep.
that's the reason why I've come to respect your character that
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so
It's
much.
it's what I do best, actually. Well, Paul, it is such an honor to have you on my YouTube interview.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Do please let me know when it's broadcast time, or as so to speak.
Oh, trust me, that's what I often do in my YouTube channel all the time. Upload
Okay.
it, just like I've done for others for 3 years, like for example with my friend Chris J. Alex and
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer Sunbell and others.
Uh-huh. All
So
right.
yeah,
Good.
that's something I've done.
Good.
So
It's a
anyway,
pleasure. It's an honor to be brought on. Thank you so
of,
much.
of course. Well, Paul, it is such an honor to finally see you right here, and hopefully we'll be seeing each other in the near future when the time comes.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. It's been a lot of fun.
Of course, Paul. And do
Good luck.
something awesome, my friend.
Good luck in the future.
I will be eventually.
Yes. Thank you so much.
See you around, Xemnas.
I'll see you around.
Bye.